At 9:48 p.m. in the evening, her son-in-law watched her walk inside. He waited in the driveway until the garage door closed completely, until he was sure she was in, until the house sealed around her and the night outside went quiet. Then he drove away. She was home. She was safe. The evening was over. He had no way of knowing that 4 hours later, a man in a ski mask, carrying a backpack and a visible gun holster, would approach her front door in the dark. He had no way of knowing that at 2:28 a.m. in the morning, the app that monitored her pacemaker would disconnect from her phone. Not because the battery died, not because of a glitch, because she was no longer within range. She was 84 years old. She depended on daily medication. She had mobility issues that made the idea of her simply walking away in the middle of the night impossible. She had lived in Tucson, Arizona for over 50 years. She had a church service planned for the next morning. She had a family who loved her and called her and showed up for dinner and waited in the driveway until the garage door closed. She was gone by sunrise. And the person who took Nancy Guthrie, who carried a gun to the door of an 84-year-old woman in the middle of the night, who planned this in advance, who wore gloves and a mask and specifically targeted a woman who could not run, has not been found. Not today, not after 40,000 tips, not after the FBI director flew personally to Tucson, not after a $1.2 million reward, not after ransom notes demanding Bitcoin, after searches of septic tanks and desert terrain, after thousands of hours of surveillance footage reviewed frame by frame. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. And her daughter, one of the most recognized women in American television, a woman whose face appears on screens across the country every single morning, stepped away from her career, away from everything, to search for her mother. Because what else do you do when someone takes your mother in the dark and leaves blood on her front porch and disappears without a trace? Today we are going to Tucson, Arizona. We are going to stand at Nancy Guthrie's front door and look at the footage that made the entire country hold its breath. We are going to follow every detail of the most extraordinary missing persons case of 2026. And we are going to ask the question that no one has been able to answer. Where is Nancy Guthrie? Before we get to that doorbell camera, before we stand in the dark at 2 a.m. and watch a masked man approach the home of an elderly woman, you need to know who Nancy Guthrie is. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27th, 1942 in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She was 84 years old at the time of her disappearance, a fact that matters not just because of her age, but because of what that age represents. 84 years of a life built quietly, steadily, with a kind of dignity that does not make headlines. 84 years of a woman who raised 3 children, buried a husband, built a community, and settled so deeply into Tucson, Arizona, that it became the only home that mattered. She moved there with her family in the early 1970s, more than 50 years. She knew her neighborhood. She knew her church. She knew the rhythms of her days, her medication schedule, her plans, her routines. She was described by everyone who knew her as sharp, mentally present and clear, in a way that age does not always allow. She had mobility issues that made extended physical movement difficult, but her mind was entirely her own. Her husband, Charles Guthrie, died in 1988. He was only 49 years old, lost during a mining exploration trip in Mexico. Nancy was left to raise 3 children on her own. She did it. She raised them into adults who, by every public account, adored her. Cameron, Annie, and Savannah, the youngest, the one whose face the world knows best, the one who sits behind the desk on the Today Show every morning and speaks to millions of people about the news of the day. For most of Nancy Guthrie's life, her daughter's fame was simply background noise, a source of pride, certainly, something the family talked about. But Nancy's world was Tucson, her church, her friends, her neighborhood in the Catalina foothills, the upscale suburb north of the city where the houses sit back from the road and the desert stretches out in every direction, and the nights are quiet and dark and safe. Or so she thought. On the evening of Saturday, January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner at her daughter Annie's home. She arrived at 5:32 inches the evening. They ate, they played games. It was a normal family evening, the kind that exists in the background of a life without demanding to be Socione, drove her home afterward. At 9:48 p.m., he pulled into her driveway. He waited. She went inside. The garage door came down. He drove away. And Nancy Guthrie was never seen again. The first sign that something was wrong came the next morning. Nancy had plans. She was supposed to attend church on Sunday, February 1st, with friends. She did not show up. Her friends waited. Then they called. No answer. They called again. Her family was contacted. And at 11:56 inches the morning, relatives went to check on her. What they found at Nancy Guthrie's home in the Catalina foothills sent a current of cold through everyone who saw it. The house was still. Her car was in the garage. Her belongings were inside. Nothing suggested she had packed, planned, or chosen to go anywhere. Everything about the scene said she was supposed to be here. And on the front porch, drops of blood, confirmed, later, to be Nancy's. More blood was found inside the house. The Pima County Sheriff's Office was called immediately. Within hours, the investigation was active. And within days, the Pima County Sheriff, Chris Nanos, stood in front of cameras and said what the evidence at the scene had already told the family. He believed Nancy Guthrie had been abducted, not wandered off, not confused or disoriented, not a medical incident that had taken her somewhere unexpected. Abducted, taken against her will, carried out of her own home in the dead of night by someone who had come prepared, who had planned it, who had left her blood on the threshold as the only evidence she had been there at all. Sheriff Nanos added something that silenced everyone in that press conference. He said the family had been fully cooperative. They had been cleared. This was not someone she knew. This was not someone from inside that small, loving family circle. This was someone from outside. Someone who had targeted Nancy Guthrie specifically. Someone who had studied her routine, her home, her neighborhood, and chosen a night to come. And then the doorbell footage came out, and the entire country stopped. On February 10th, FBI Director Kash Patel personally released the images, still photographs, and a short video pulled from Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera, a Nest device mounted at her front door that had captured something in the early hours of February 1st. A figure standing at her front door in the dark. The figure is wearing a ski mask, dark clothing, gloves, on their back, a black Ozark Trail Hiker backpack, the kind you can buy at Walmart for under $20. And visible at their side, a gun holster. They are not rushing. They are not panicking. They move with a deliberateness that experts who reviewed the footage described as calculated, planned. This is not someone who arrived at that door on impulse. This is someone who had decided, in advance, exactly what they were going to do. In the footage, the figure can be seen tampering with the doorbell camera, attempting to block the lens, placing branches in front of it. There is a theory, among investigators, that the figure may have approached the door once, noticed the camera, retreated, and then returned, come back more prepared, more committed. The camera subscription had lapsed. Nancy had not renewed the cloud storage service that would have automatically saved footage, which means the images that were recovered, the ones that FBI Director Patel released to the world, exist only because of what could be pulled from the device's limited local storage. Had the subscription been active, there might have been more footage, more angles, more of the truth captured in high resolution. Instead, a grainy figure, a mask, a backpack, a gun holster, an approximate height of 5'9" to 5'10", and a gap in the footage where the most critical moments should have been. At 2:12 inches the morning, the camera's software detected motion, but because there was no active cloud subscription, no video was saved from that moment. 16 minutes later, at 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker app disconnected from her phone. She was out of range. Someone had taken her far enough away from her own phone that the device monitoring her heart could no longer find her. Within 4 hours of arriving home safe, within 4 hours of her son-in-law watching the garage door close, Nancy Guthrie was gone. Now, the ransom notes. Because this is where the case takes a turn that law enforcement has described as one of the most complex investigative challenges they have ever faced. Not because the notes were convincing, but because of what they might mean and what they might not. Within days of Nancy's disappearance, ransom notes began appearing, not sent to the family directly, sent to media outlets, to local television stations in Arizona, to national outlets including TMZ. Notes demanding payment in Bitcoin cryptocurrency, untraceable if handled correctly. Specific notes. Notes that described what Nancy was wearing on the night she disappeared. Notes with deadlines. February 9th, a Monday, $6 million. Pay by 5 p.m. or face consequences. The FBI took at least 2 of the notes seriously from the beginning, seriously enough to publicly acknowledge them, seriously enough to investigate their origins, seriously enough to treat one as potentially legitimate communication from whoever had Nancy. The deadlines came and went. No payment was made. Nancy was not returned. And then, the nature of the notes began to shift. Questions emerged about whether every note was genuine, whether some of the communications flooding into law enforcement and media outlets were from opportunists, from scammers trying to exploit a national story, from people who had no connection to Nancy's disappearance, but saw an opportunity in the chaos. A man named Derek Colella, a 42-year-old from California, was charged with sending a fake ransom note to the Guthrie family, charged with transmitting a demand for ransom in interstate commerce. He was not the abductor. He was someone who had weaponized the family's worst nightmare for his own purposes. The tip lines operated jointly by the Pima County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI received somewhere between 40,000 and 50,000 calls, 40 to 50,000 tips. Law enforcement said approximately 10% had investigative value. That is 4,000 to 5,000 leads, each one requiring follow-up, assessment, resources, time. Investigators described it as one of the most complex tip environments they had ever managed, not because the public wasn't trying, because the volume of noise made finding the signal almost impossible. And somewhere in all of that, the real answer was waiting. Right here, right now, I need to stop and sit with you for a second. Because this case is not historical. This is not something that happened decades ago and has since settled into the record books. This is happening now. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for over 2 months. As this video goes out, her family is still searching. The FBI is still working. The tip line is still active. If this story is landing on you the way it should, please subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about the masked figure on that doorbell footage. Tell me what you think those ransom notes mean. Tell me what you would do if this was your mother. Share this video, because every share puts Nancy's face in front of one more person, one more pair of eyes that might recognize something. And if you have any information at all, any tip, any detail, anything that has been sitting in you since you first heard about this case, call the FBI tip line, because one tip, just one, is all it takes to break a case open. Stay with me, because we need to talk about what this disappearance has done to Savannah Guthrie, and about the extraordinary, heartbreaking thing her family has done in the middle of their worst nightmare. Savannah Guthrie has been co-anchor of the Today Show since 2012. She is one of the most familiar faces in American morning television, the voice that greets millions of households across the country as they start their days. Warm, professional, present. Someone who has covered presidential elections, breaking news, national crises. Someone trained to remain steady in the middle of chaos. On February 1st, 2026, the chaos came to her. When it was confirmed that Nancy had been abducted, Savannah stepped back from the Today Show. She suspended her broadcasting duties, including coverage of the 2026 Winter Olympics, one of the most significant broadcasting events of the year. She put down the microphone. She went to Tucson. Because what else do you do? Her brother Cameron posted a video to social media in the first days of the investigation, speaking directly to whoever had their mother. His voice steady in the way that voices are steady when they are working very hard not to break. He said, "Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out. We need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you and we are waiting for contact." He was not threatening. He was not demanding. He was a son, speaking to a stranger who had his mother, asking for the most basic possible thing, proof that she was still alive. A signal. Anything. On February 16th, Savannah posted a video directly addressed to whoever had taken Nancy. She looked into the camera, and said, "You are not lost or alone, and it is never too late to do the right thing. We are here. We believe in the essential goodness of every human being." Former FBI agents who analyzed that statement said the language appeared deliberate, calibrated. The words of a family working with crisis negotiators to communicate in a way that might reach the person holding their mother. Not anger, not ultimatums, an open door, a way out, come back. Bring her home. The door has stayed open. Nancy has not come through it. On February 24th, Savannah announced a $1 million reward for information leading to her mother's safe recovery. The family's reward, combined with the law enforcement reward already in place, brought the total to $1.2 million. At the same time, the family donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. In the middle of their worst nightmare, in the middle of not knowing if their mother was alive, if she had her medication, if she was warm, if she was afraid, they gave $500,000 to other families in pain, because they knew what it felt like now, and they could not unknow it. FBI Director Kash Patel flew to Tucson personally. The investigation drew in the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Pima County search and rescue teams, forensic analysts, surveillance experts. The backpack worn by the figure in the doorbell footage was traced to Walmart. The gloves found near the property were examined. DNA evidence was collected from inside the home and sent for analysis. Ransom notes mentioned Mexico. A note received by TMZ referenced a sighting of Nancy in Sonora, the Mexican state that borders Arizona just south of Tucson. Mexican authorities were contacted. Searches extended across the border. As of today, Nancy Guthrie has not been found. No suspect has been named. No arrest has been made. And the investigation, described by the Pima County Sheriff as one of the most challenging his office has ever handled, remains open and active. There are things about this case that will not leave me alone, no matter how many times I go back through the details. The pacemaker. That detail, that one specific detail. At 2:28 inches the morning, the app that monitored Nancy Guthrie's heart disconnected from her phone because she was out of range. Think about what that means for a moment. Not just as an investigative data point, as a human reality. An 84-year-old woman, someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone who had survived 50 years in the same city and outlived her husband and raised 3 children on her own, was being carried far enough away from her own home that the device keeping track of her heartbeat could no longer reach her phone. The app went dark. And somewhere in the Tucson desert, or across the border, or in a location that none of the 40,000 tips have pinpointed, Nancy Guthrie was alive. Her heart was still beating. The pacemaker was still working. She was just out of range. Whether she is still alive today, whether those 75 days and counting have been survivable for a woman who depends on daily medication, who has mobility issues, who was 84 years old when this began, is the question that her family wakes up to every single morning. Savannah Guthrie has returned to the Today Show. Producers have put strict procedures in place. If news about the investigation breaks while she is on air, she is taken off set. Another anchor handles it. Someone else tells the story while Savannah is somewhere she does not have to perform composure in real time. Because she is a journalist, she knows how to tell the story. But this story is her mother, and there is no training for that. Nancy Guthrie was dropped off at her own home on a Saturday night in January. Her son-in-law watched the garage door close. He drove away, knowing she was safe. She was not safe. And 4 hours later, her heart was beating somewhere her phone could not reach. Somewhere the cameras did not see. Somewhere that 40,000 people calling a tip line have not yet found. She is 84 years old. She has 3 children who love her. She has a daughter whose voice reaches millions of people every morning. She has a church she was supposed to go to the next day. She has a life she was living quietly and fully in a city she had called home for over 50 years. And somewhere she is waiting. If you know anything, if you saw anything, if you heard anything, if something has been sitting in you since the first time you heard this story, please call the FBI, the Pima County Sheriff. The family is offering $1.2 million for information that helps bring Nancy home. Please subscribe to the cold case signals. Your subscription goes a long for my channel. Ring that notification bell. Leave a comment. Tell me your theory. Tell me what you think the ransom notes mean. Tell me what this case is doing to you. Share this video. One share. One more person who sees Nancy's face. One more signal. We have more cases coming. More signals to follow. More stories told the way they deserve to be told, with depth, with truth, and with absolute respect for every woman at the center of them. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.